and welcome back to another video on the channel. Today we're back on GT Sport and we're back with the FIA manufacturers round number 4, driving at Blue Moon Infield track in the Group 3 cars. You can see a standing start for this round of the FIA Championship, starting from P1 with a very nice lap there of 107.7 is GTA Tigny, and P2 TTR Benson in the Porsche 911. You will find that the front few rows were mainly the handling cars, so you're going to see like the NSX, the Porsche, the Toyota, the Renault, etc. taking up front spots. I was really reasonably happy with my qualifying lap. It could have been better, but before I said to myself, if I get into the 107s, I'm happy. I did know that I could get to a 107.7, but didn't quite hook the lap up. But still, starting P6, reasonably happy with that, and out qualifying some of the cars that should have been a little bit further up. So can't complain really. And you see going through the field, and a very high split races. I think at the start of the race, when everyone was in without disconnects, the top place was worth over 2,900 points. So starting P6, there's an opportunity for some big points in this. In P10 there, M. Thomas 95 in the Ferrari. I was very okay car at this track, but I was a little bit worried about the tyre wear for that car. You know, having to do one stop, 21 laps. I can imagine that car was pretty much a nightmare to drive middle way through the stint. As you can see, going through the field, some really big names all the way down in McLaren there. You see in P14 and in P15 there, VP Toby Fun. You also saw TRL Lightning a little bit further up the field. Nissan GTR, not a great car here. That's why you see a lot of Nissan drivers at the back of the grid. Struggled a little bit in qualifying, obviously, because the car doesn't really suit this track. In race conditions, it was probably a little bit better because you've got the straight line speed, so it can take advantage of some overtakes. But for qualifying, it was a struggle for the Nissan drivers, and I think TRL Lightning also didn't quite hook his lap up, he said, so he probably would have started a little bit further up if he would have hooked that final lap up. But an unusual situation with the grid, with a lot of big names obviously out of place because of their car's performance at this particular track. I was reasonably happy to be starting P6. We're going to run this race all on board with gameplay footage for this video. I haven't done one for a few videos, so I thought I'd keep this action all on board, and at the end of the race we'll go through some highlights. So keeping my foot on the brake, I don't have a handbrake set up on my steering wheel. As you see, a lot of people got a false start. It looks like the Williams driver there in the P5 starting tried to jump the start a little bit and get a good start, and actually jumped it, and a few people picked up obviously the penalty. So straight up into P4, I managed to get a reasonably okay start. M. Thomas with a lightning start behind me, and Oscaro sent with an amazing start as TTR Benson loses the rear end, and there's contact into turn 1 between Tigny, the pole starter, and Benson in P2. So that's moved me straight up to P2. We're going to have a look at that in depth later on in the video. At the end, I'm going to slow it all down and show you what happened there. There was a mixture of two things happening. There was a little bit of contact going into the entry of the corner where TTR Benson tapped Tigny, where they've tried to go on different lines through turn 1, which was acceptable because I think Benson was on the outside. He got a better start, so he was always going to go down that wide angle, but then he gave Tigny a little touch, which boosted Tigny a bit. Tigny started to lose the rear end slightly, and then Benson obviously got a snap of oversteer, and they both just started going towards each other because Tigny's rear was already going before the contact, and they just both ended up spinning out. So unfortunate for GTA Tigny there. He was in for some big points in this race. I'm pretty sure he would have had trouble, I think, getting past Slem because the NSX's straight line speed and its fuel saving ability on that NSX, but I think he would have been, the way this was going, it would have probably been Tigny, the Porsche, and then myself in P4, but I'll take P2, and I'm pretty sure M. Thomas was probably smiling at that start, going through the carnage and going from P10 on the grid to P3. I'm sure he was 100% happy with that, like I am, from P6 to P2. So a great start for us, and now I'm just trying to keep it solid because obviously starting from P6 and knowing that the points were very big for this round because a lot of big drivers in this race, the aim of this is now just to keep it solid, try and stay within Oscaro's slipstream as I go a little bit deep into that corner, but that's okay because you can actually square it off and get on the power a little bit earlier. Then as you see, M. Thomas got closer, but then as soon as I get on the power I pull away again because obviously I've got that straighter point where I can get on the power. Now just staying in the slipstream and trying to hold on to Oscaro's. The aim was this time was not to lose the slipstream to the lead driver. Obviously in other rounds where I think it was round 2 and 3, I think it might be round 2 at the new track, I made that error which lost me the slipstream, and for this round the aim was to not make that same error, to just stay in this slipstream and let him drag me round all the way to the pit stop phase, and just try and keep the laps consistent without making too many errors. Obviously I knew that one positive for my car would probably be the tyre wear. With it being front engined, the the tyre wear was probably going to be a little bit more even compared to obviously the Ferrari behind me. No hope when it comes to tyre wear. You know, everyone knows about the Ferrari, it cannot survive on tyres. Also, the Toyota, a few places back, I was pretty sure that might start struggling with tyres, and also the NSX, I'm not too sure how that is on tyres. It is a tricky car to drive, but I don't know how it is on tyres. We'll have to watch this as the race goes on, but I knew that my Mercedes would be reasonably okay. I'd done 2 practice races, I think it was, before this race. I just ran with a strategy. I knew there was an alternative strategy with this race of doing a 2-stop strategy, because you could easily, you know, if you got out in the lead and started really going for it and got out the slipstream, you could probably turn it into a 2-stop strategy where you pit lap 7 and lap 14, and obviously you're going to have fresher tyres, because it was worth probably about half a second a lap. So there was an opportunity to do it, because of pit entry you only lost about 7 to 8 seconds by just changing tyres. So, you know, it would have been an up and down, whether it was going to work out or not. It would have been very close, but my aim was just to do the 1-stop strategy. The Mercedes clearly had the tyres to do the 1-stop. It didn't need to even think about the 2-stop strategy. But I had an idea that before going into this race, I was convinced that people like Tijani, if he got out in the lead, would probably do a 2-stop strategy and just really go for it. Maybe I really didn't know what his tyres were going to be like. I do know that obviously the rear-wheel drive cars tend to have obviously the rear-wheel mid-engine cars tend to have higher tyre wear than the Mercedes AMG, because Mercedes has the engine in the front, rear-wheel drive, so it's a little bit more balanced on the tyre wear. But you see, managing to hold on to Oscar at this stage. M. Thomas has lost a place to RC Miura in that Toyota. The Toyota, a very good car at this track. I did expect to be put under a lot of pressure by RC Miura, but at the moment managing to hold my P2 and not looking too on the threat, managing to hold on to it, Oscar in that NSX, and just keeping a nice consistent drive and just trying to keep it on the track without making any errors. That was the aim. You know, I've said it before in the other videos. For the first, I've got to get 5 solid results in, and then we can start looking at some bigger points and hope for some really good results. But at the way this is going so far, P2 100%. This would be some massive points for my championship hopes in the Manufacturers Series driving for Mercedes. I didn't expect to be in this position, obviously, at the start of this. I knew the Mercedes was fairly good. I did say it in a video just the other day that I knew the Mercedes was fairly solid here because it was very stable. So I kind of expected, to be in the top 5 to 6 positions. That was the aim, but to be in P2, I couldn't really have asked for a better start to this race. Obviously held by the unfortunate start with Tijani and Benson going into turn 1 and a little bit of contact. It was a racing incident. I think when we're going to go back and I'm going to show it, I think it was a racing incident. I'm confused about the other drivers though, jumping the start. I don't know if they just totally forgot about the false start check, or it looked like, for me, it looked like the Renault was trying to get the jump on the start by pre-guessing when them red lights were going to go out, and it just failed him, and he obviously got the slowdown penalty, which costs massively on this game. The slowdown start, you're just going to sit there, and then it causes issues for other drivers. I think they need to do, if a car jumps the start, the car should instantly be ghosted, because in real life they wouldn't cut the engine out. You'd keep going like normal, and then they'd get a drive-through penalty. That could be another thing. Maybe they should be given a drive-through penalty for doing the jump start without being able to go in the pits. It should do some sort of drive-through penalty system. That would be an alternative method of doing it, because depending on how much time they gain, obviously if they jump the start by 10 seconds or 5 seconds or something, then obviously they need a more severe penalty. It should have some sort of judging system to avoid the carnage that it does cause, because you have a situation where cars are stationary, cars are trying to get out of the way of other cars, and it's just a bit of a mess. But you can see, managing to really do well at this stage of the race, managed to break the slipstream to RC Miura. I don't know if he was doing a bit of fuel saving or what was going on, whether he had made a mistake, but doing a great job. You see M. Thomas right behind RC Miura, and I'm managing to hold on to Oscar Islen in P1 in that NSX. I'm doing a really good job of holding this position, this Mercedes. You can see I'm doing a little bit of short shifting, not massive amounts. I'm just trying to keep the revs around halfway on the straight because I've got the slipstream, and it is helping me build up to speeds which are over 160 miles an hour. So look, 163, 164, 165. So that's 3 or 4 miles per hour, not faster than what I would do in a qualifying run with no slipstream. So short shifting and still gaining speed because of that slipstream, and that's what's really helping this Mercedes out down the straights, because through this section it was really stable and nicely balanced there. It probably wasn't quite as fast as the NSX, the Peugeot and cars like that, but balance is what you want also, because it's all about consistency, keeping your lap times together. You see, so far I've driven a really consistent race, 108.5s, 5, 3, 4, 5. It's really consistent driving, helped by the fact that obviously P1 is driving really well as well, and just enabling me just to sit in this slipstream and try and hold on. You know, I could have attacked the revs a bit more, but the way I was thinking of this race was that P2 is a great position. There's no point me burning my fuel up, attacking him too much, you know, revving it out, getting really close into the braking. We both lose time. Not the situation that both of us would want. It's better to just let him do his driving, I'll do my driving behind, and we can try and build up, you know, a nice distance between some of the other drivers behind us. They're battling away, as you can see in the distance. Still fairly close between a lot of cars. You can see all the way down to about P7, 8. It's not far behind. So only about 4 seconds, 5 seconds separates P1 to about P6 or 7. So not massive distances, and you know, depending on fuel saving, that could be made up in the pits. So I've got to make sure I do reasonable fuel saving all the way to the pit stop phase. My aim before going into this race was always going to be to pit at the end of lap 11. And you see, I get a little bit aggressive on the curb there and lose the slipstream to Oscar Slem, but straight away I knew I needed to get that slipstream back and drive a little bit more aggressive, so use a little bit more fuel up, because I didn't want to make the same error that has happened in other races where I just carry on and, you know, lose that slipstream too much. So straight away trying to get on the power really early out of that final corner, the second to last corner, and through this corner trying to drive it reasonably aggressive. You can see cutting half the curb on the power to the limit of the wall there, and really hooked that up, and straight away got myself straight back into that slipstream. So it does show that I had the ability to drive faster and get straight back up to his slipstream, and then I can just concentrate on short shifting. You see there, straight back into the short shifting and not worrying about attacking into turn 1, obviously, because I'm too far back. So the pace was there if I really needed it, but I did a really good job, I think, there of managing to get straight back into that slipstream. You see also RC Mura managed to pick up my slipstream from the error that I did, and obviously now a little bit closer, just 8 tenths behind. And M Thomas probably starting to struggle a little bit now at this phase of the race. Be interesting to see what they do on their strategy, whether they'll go for the longer stint on the first stint or try and hold it at the end, and maybe try and do the undercut, which could work for M Thomas. He's got good speed on this track. Obviously the Ferrari is a nice car, especially when it's on fresh tyres. However, if he goes for that undercut towards the end, he's going to be suffering, and obviously the same for RC Mura. Didn't know what type of fuel levels they had at this stage of the race. I didn't even know what levels I had, because I had the brake bias on instead of the fuel mixture. I don't know why I had that on. Pretty random. Normally I have it on fuel, but I must have clicked it over that by mistake and was that much in the zone of concentrating on Oscar. He tries to break the slipstream, but no real worry for me. I might as well just stay in a straight line. He's going to come back anyway, because he's got to be on that right hand side for this corner. As you can see, RC Mura still not closer now as we start lap 10, so this is going to be the interesting phase. Did M Thomas go in the pits then? No, he didn't go in the pits on lap 10. Sometimes he does like to go in quite a few laps earlier, but I think he's probably thought if he does that, his tyres would be completely shot by the end of the race, having to do obviously 13 laps or 12, 13 laps. Not really good for the Ferrari to be doing that on this track. But RC Mura, trying to put myself under pressure now. Obviously I didn't feel threatened by RC Mura though, because I felt like I could hold him off fairly comfortably. Obviously I'm doing short shifting. If I did need to drive more aggressively, I could do that and get a little bit closer to Oscar Slem. But like I say, it's best just to let him do his work in front and keep it nice and tidy. He's probably doing very good fuel saving as well. I think the NSX is a little bit stronger than the AMG when it comes to fuel. Not too sure, but we'll have a little look as we go in the pits, as he's driving pretty much perfectly in that lead position at the moment, making no errors, keeping it consistent and doing everything that he needs to do. And now I've just got to follow him, and you see straight away here I'm not going to go in the pits. As you see, RC Mura dives off into the pits. He's got, let's have a little look, 17% fuel, so not very much fuel. And a lot of drivers there not great on the fuel as they go in the pits. I think you see I've moved it to the fuel mixture. I've got 24%, so a little bit more fuel. I checked that at the time just to double check as they went in the pits. Some drivers you see there a little bit more, but I'm doing an okay job on fuel. It all depends what P1's been doing. I expected he'd probably been saving a little bit more than me, because obviously I know that he's fairly good with his fuel. I've driven in other races with him. I know that he tends to do good fuel saving on the first stint, and then will over fuel on the second stint so he can drive a little bit harder. But everything's going really well at this stage. You've seen cars that were behind me had less fuel, so when I go in the pits on this lap, any time lost on this lap, I'll be able to make that up with the shorter pit stop and the fact that then I've got fresher tyres for the end, hopefully I should be in an okay position coming to the end of this race. It's going to be really interesting how this pans out as we go in the pits, to see if any cars try to do an undercut too much, you know, putting less fuel than they need in at the pit stop and trying to jump up some positions. My fear was of the Ferrari getting in front of me. Coming out the pits, the one fear I had was that Ferrari jumping me, because I know what it's like on tyres and I know it would hold me up. As you see, Oscar sent brilliant fuel saving, 26%. He had 9% more fuel than me, so I decided to do not so much over fueling on the pit stop. I decided to do a little bit short of the diamond, just to try and get a little bit closer to his car and see if I can get in his slipstream again. So you see, I actually stopped it short of the diamond. Obviously you don't need as much for the second stint anyway, because your car's a bit lighter. And looking behind, you see M. Thomas in that Ferrari just coming around the outside. He has a little moment there, but he's got the inside line. That was, I'm trying to get on the power and go around the outside, but unfortunately for myself, not much I can do to defend from coming from that tight angle into turn 1. M. Thomas has managed to get himself into this was a nightmare situation for me, because I wanted to be straight on it and trying to get close to Oscar Slen so I can then use his slipstream again. But unfortunately now I've got M. Thomas in the lead ahead of me with a lap over the tyres, so I know this could probably slow me down a bit in terms of race pace once his tyres start really dying off. I did think that I'm going to have to try and have a look at making a move straight away, so you see, trying to get a nice tight line on there so I can get really on the power as soon as possible and try and pick up his slipstream. So going onto the back straight, downshifting into third gear, try and cut some of that corner on the power as early as I can. Didn't maximise the apex speed and the exit speed on that corner, but still picking up that slipstream. And let's see if I can make a move going into turn 1. A bit too far back at this point, picking up the slipstream though, under 4 attempts, gaining all the time, as obviously in 6th gear that slipstream's building, but not really in a position. But my line through this corner was way different to a lot of people would like to go really wide there as we come into contact, and that was my fault, I think. Tiny bit of contact, but luckily both got away with it. I give him a little flash to say sorry, but when we have a little look on the replay later, you're going to see it was a mixture of situations. I take a different line through that corner compared to a lot of other drivers, because the Mercedes like to take it tight without running too high up and bouncing everywhere. It was a little bit more consistent. I felt it might not have been as fast, but I felt it was a bit more consistent. But obviously a combination of me doing that line, M. Thomas going really high up, and his car just hit the bumper really hard. He lost the rear a bit, and then that kicked us both into each other's line. So not really anyone's. I'd say it's more my fault than M. Thomas's fault. But I did say sorry to him after the race, but no real loss. It just meant that RC Miura was able to get a little bit closer in that slipstream and start gaining on this battle. So this is looking quite tense now. I need to just hold on to the slipstream for a bit. I did know, obviously I had a feeling that if I just hold on to M. Thomas's slipstream, eventually that Ferrari is just going to give up with its tyres. It just cannot last that long on tyres, and I thought he's going to do 12 laps on these tyres. He pitted, 11 laps on these tyres now. He's pitted at the end of lap 10, so he's going to have to do 11 laps, and I knew that Ferrari would be starting to struggle at this race. So just hold on now in the slipstream, do some of my fuel saving that I need to be done, because obviously I undercut the fuel, so trying to be a little bit tactical now at this stage and not overdriving it like I was on the first stint. Just I felt like P1 was out of question now. I could see he's over 3 seconds ahead. He's got a comfortable lead, and all I can really do now, you see, I think he's 3.7 seconds in the lead, is it there, or 2.8, I can't really tell on the screen at the moment, but he's clearly in the lead. And it's going to be a big ask to gain that amount of time on him, because he's probably got more fuel to drive aggressively, because he only came out the pits just over a second ahead of ourselves, and he went in the pits with 9% more fuel. So he's obviously put a fair bit more fuel in me, so he can give it more on the straights. And now I've just got to try and keep my cool, make sure I don't give RC Miura any opportunity to get past me. As long as I can just stay in the slipstream with M. Thomas, you see, just keep the short shifting as much as I can, just to try and make sure that I've got the fuel towards the end of the race. See, going over the line with 5.9 laps of fuel left, with 6 laps to go. So it's not massively the amount of fuel saving I need to do. I just need to keep it reasonable short shifting just at this stage, while M. Thomas has obviously still got really good tyres, so his speed's going to be reasonably good in that Ferrari. And as long as I hold on to the slipstream, I was pretty confident that there'll become a point where, when I can start driving a bit more aggressive, he's going to start struggling with the tyres. It looks already like that Ferrari is starting to have a little bit of issues with the tyres as he's running wide out of that corner, possibly picking up more penalties. I don't know. I did know that you could pick up a penalty from running wide there. His car's obviously flashing, so I don't know what type of penalties he's got, as I've managed to get a little bit closer to him now, obviously from the mistake he's made. The lead driver is there just over 3 seconds ahead, so everyone's still fairly close. RC Miura close to myself, and it's a fairly close race for this lead battle. You can see on the top right hand corner there's 5 or 6 cars still within 4 or 5 seconds of each other, so 15 laps into this race, it's very close. The battle for P2 is pretty much anyone's at this time of the race, but I felt reasonably comfortable. I didn't feel like I had to be driving overly aggressively. Go over the line with a personal best there, getting really close to M. Thomas there into turn 1. You've seen the difference between the lines we take in that corner, and that's what caused the issue going into turn 1 on that previous couple of laps back. But now I could start sensing that his tyres were starting to go. He's obviously done that extra lap, and his car's not great on his tyres. So again, going through that corner, he's holding on to that Ferrari. He's trying to give it everything, but I'm keeping it smooth, and the Mercedes is keeping its tyres really well. It's not really having any issues in terms of grip. So I felt like there was going to be an opportunity soon. So all I had to do was just sit in this slipstream and then just wait for an opportunity when I can start pushing a little bit harder down the straights once I've got the fuel in the situation where I can really drive aggressively. So a lot closer now, going through this corner, trying to get a solid exit from here, straight in the slipstream. Are we close enough to really go for it? Let's see. Going down this straight now, you can see his hazards are going on. I'm going to give it more revs down the straights. It looks like he's giving it up and he's just going to let me go past, because it kind of makes sense for him to do that, because then he can then hold on to my slipstream. As I felt like I had a bit more pace at this point in the race, he's starting to struggle, and straight into turn 1, moved on. Nice driving by M. Thomas there to let me go on the inside, and quite tactical as well. He's probably thinking that he can then just hold on to my slipstream and try and see if he can get a P3 out of this race, which I'm sure he would have been happy about. Obviously starting from P10, getting himself up into P3 at this stage, I'm sure he would have been more than happy at this stage of the race. But you can see some other drivers getting closer now. McLaren 6 in the Corvette. I was quite surprised to see the Corvette so far down in qualifying. I don't think that McLaren quite hooked his lap up in the qualifying session, because I know that last time a daily race was on at this track, the McLaren was reasonably strong. Obviously quite a good car in the straight lines, and it was very good at fuel saving, so it was a very strong car in race conditions. So whether he didn't hook his lap up, I'm not too sure, but he's now got himself all the way up to P4. You see TRR Lightning obviously made progress as well in this race, up into P7. RC Miura down to P5, obviously starting to struggle with the fuel because he hadn't done great fuel saving in that first stint. Obviously had to put more fuel in, and maybe he tried to undercut the fuel a bit and starting to struggle a bit now. As you see, the race pace has been really good so far in the second stint. I've just kept it solid on 108s, not actually gone into the 109s yet on any laps in this second stint. It's just been solid mid 108s, keeping it consistent. We're a little bit too far behind Oscar Ascent to really do much now. I'm going to try and drive it reasonably aggressive to see if I could make any impression, but I felt like it was pretty obvious that P1 was not on the cards. The main aim now was to hold on to P2 and keep this position for some solid points in this championship. You can see M. Thomas just about holding on, but it's just lost the slipstream now as I go through these corners. He's suffering with that tyre wear. You can see he's literally hanging on, but again it's over 1 second as we go into the back straight. So really struggling with the Ferrari for traction. I think when the tyres go on the rear of that car, they just go really quick. There's not much you can do about it. And now going down the final straight, about to start lap 19, so just 3 laps to go. It looks like McLaren 6 is going to make a move on M. Thomas. Looking how close he was on that top right hand corner on the camera, on the TV camera. You can see he's very close. Is he close enough to make a move into turn 1? He's pulled out and he's gone for that move. It looks like M. Thomas hasn't put much of a fight up, and now I've got the Corvette behind me. So for now, I decided I'm going to have to put some solid laps in and push a little bit harder for 2 laps and just try and make it clear that McLaren wasn't going to get the chance, because I was driving fairly settled at that stage. I didn't obviously want to make any risks, so now I'm going to push a little bit harder. You see, using more of the curb, driving it a little bit more aggressive and trying to build that gap up to about 1.5 seconds. I wanted the lead to be at least 1.4, 1.5 seconds going into the final lap, so then on the final lap I can just back off a bit and just take it really easy, not pushing on any of the limits, and just let the time slip a bit. Obviously the one thing I didn't want to do was having to drive on the limit on the final lap and possibility of losing massive amounts of positions, because TRI Lightning in there in P7 isn't that far behind at this stage. As going onto the back straight, very close to the wall. I think I actually skimmed the wall there, got the gap to 1.2 seconds, so it's looking okay starting lap 20, so just 2 laps to go, and this is going to be close. Can I build the gap up a bit on this lap 20 to see if I can increase it a bit? Going over the line on a solid 108.5, So even with the tyre wear, doing some reasonably solid laps. You can see McLaren 6 has actually got the fastest lap of the race, so that McLaren is clearly a good car in race conditions. As now pushing round here and just trying to make sure I do consistent driving and reasonably aggressive. You can see the car looks more aggressive now. As you can see, I'm trying to use a lot more of the track, doing a reasonably good first sector, going through that right hander, and again using the curb on the left hand side, and nice and clean driving, and got that gap to 1.3, 1.4 seconds now. So managed to build up a little bit more of a cushion, and that's what I needed to do. Don't know if McLaren had to do some fuel saving towards the end, but I wanted to make sure that I built that gap up a little bit, just to make it clear that, you know, you're not going to get P2, and the gap was up to 1.5 seconds. So 1.5 seconds now, and that gives me the comfort I need going into the final lap. I knew that P1 was out of the question now, so now I just got to drive a consistent drive on the final lap, drop the pace by half a second, and I should still be able to go over the line with around the second lead. Looking back also, I did notice that there was a lot of drivers with penalties. I've managed to drive this race with no penalties, obviously just again similar to Brazil in Interlagos, as we go over the line on 108.7, just try and keep it consistent without taking risks on corner cuts. Just keep it smooth, keep it consistent, and don't make any risks of picking up penalties, because a lot of drivers are picking up penalties in these races by taking risks on corners and obviously in contact with other cars. And so far I was a little bit lucky to get away without a penalty when me and Thomas came together. I'm very lucky not to get a penalty there, but in terms of track limits, I've kept it on the track limits 100%, not really risked any to corner cuts, and now this final lap just taking it nice and easy and losing a few temps now, as obviously I'm just taking it really easy on the power here. You know, this is one area where if you put the power down too much you can spin out the rear, being ultra cautious in the braking nice and early, making sure I don't get on the marbles and losing traction there. So again, really easy and not making any risks as we go through the final corner. All I've got to do now is take this comfortably easy, not pushing the speed at all out of that exit, giving them plenty of room towards the wall and going down the straight. And this is a solid result. You can see I've got the fuel to go to the finishing line, still got 1% fuel, so I can rev it out all the way to the finishing line as we go over the line with 1 second to spare, and a nice comfortable last lap and a comfortable race in the end. Really happy with that. P2 and some really big points was available in this race, so really happy to get the Mercedes a big scoring round. That's what I wanted to get, one big scoring round. I've come so close to getting a reasonably good result on two previous rounds. Started the season with a good round, and then 2 rounds where it was just 2k solid points. We're going to go through the start now. This was a little bit chaotic, this start. You can see Oscar Slem gets a really good start, really good. I think it's because of the gearing on this NSX. I think the gearing helps it with the way its second gear is. He's able to get in the second gear and just pull away so quickly. You're going to see from the start now how quickly he gets away. It's just, there's not many other cars that can match the NSX off the side. You see going in second gear and he's just gone. So straight from P3 to P1, and it wasn't even an effort for him, it was easily done. We're going to have a little look on board with myself now, as the Renault on the left hand side tries to prejudge the start a bit. You see he definitely did, because you can see he spun the wheels up. It wasn't like he went ultra early, he just tried to second guess the start, and that cost him big time. I managed to gain a place over RC Mura. M. Thomas got a lightning start there, and this is a contact in front. You're going to see it now, where Benson tried to go on the inside, which was 100% fair I think, but then he got a massive oversteer moment, as Tidgney was also having a massive oversteer moment, and they just both came into contact. So I put that down to a racing incident. I actually don't think that Benson was too much to blame, because you look at the start here, he actually got a better start than Tidgney on the outside there, and he's coming from a much better angle. So he's coming from the middle of the track. Tidgney's had to hold a tight line, but then he gives Tidgney a little tap, which was probably the start of the cause of it. And then Tidgney was starting to lose the rear already, trying to hold on, and then Benson's lost the rear. So let's have a little look at it in slow motion. You see Benson tries to go on the cutting on the inside, gives Tidgney a little tap there. Tidgney's car then obviously boosts in speed, where you do not want that. You know, one place you don't want it is on this turn 1. And watch how his rear starts to go Tidgney's rear. Also Benson's there just starts to lose a rear. He corrects it a little bit too much, and I think the error comes now. At that point there, where he should have lifted off the throttle and just let the car coast a bit and control it that way, rather than keeping the foot planted in to try and, you know, stay on the inside of Tidgney. He keeps the power on. As Tidgney's car is starting to lose the rear, Benson's put the power on, and they're just both going into a collision course. You can see it happening. They're just both pointing towards each other, and this is only going to end in a collision. So I think Benson really should have lifted off the throttle there and just avoided hitting Tisney. That's the part where I think he made the mistake, but the initial part wasn't too bad. He tried to go around the outside and then cut back on the inside, which was a fair enough move, but then the contact happens and they're both going to go off their own ways and spin out the race. So pretty much a disaster start for both of them. Unfortunate for Tisney and Benson, as they both had very good speed at this track. It was clear to see. Myself and M. Thomas just go through the middle. You see, one thing I did do was try and get over to the left hand side because I didn't want Tisney's car to unghost and wipe me out. So I stay over to the left hand side. You see me turning as much as I can, while obviously keeping the power on, and just about avoiding Tisney just in case his car does unghost, and Benson off into that wall on the left hand side, and that leaves it open for myself, RC Miura, M. Thomas to go through the middle and get a few places gained. So M. Thomas gained a lot through two people getting a jump start, and obviously a very good start as well. Just watch the start he gets in this Ferrari, pretty similar to the NSX, a really strong start, and gains a lot of places. So straight away avoids Matty and the Renault on the full start, flies past the other Toyota and the Toyota of RC Miura, but just didn't have the legs to get up the inside of myself going into turn 1. I got a reasonably okay start, so that just about saved my position there. And then you have the contact between the two cars, and we both just go through that. Luckily M. Thomas, the car doesn't unghost on him, and he goes through that as well and gets himself up into P3. So a great start by M. Thomas from P10. Now this was coming out the pits. This was the one situation that I didn't want. You're going to see as I come out the pits, I've got M. Thomas coming down the outside. He brakes early, gets the undercut. I can't do anything at that stage because I've come from such a tight line. I can't put any more steering input in without spinning the rear out. I try and hold some speed around the outside, but I have to let him go, and he's back. He gets himself up to P2. This was the next lap where I tried to get a move done. I was getting a slipstream. I go my normal racing line, but then watch as we go into this corner now. He gets a massive bounce on that curb there. Look how his car reacts to this. It kicks out massively. Look at that. Luckily, he's obviously on the brakes now as he knows his car's kicked out, and that sends him towards my line. I obviously braked a little bit late also, and it was just a instant where we both come together. Luckily, we both got away with that without any sliding and losing too much time. We lost probably about half a second to 7/10 of a second because of obviously drifting through that corner and not carrying the speed we wanted. But probably more my fault than it was M. Thomas, but also M. Thomas really bounced down on the bump and kicked his car out. So a mixture of circumstances, but I would say I was more at fault for that, and I did apologise for that. So more my fault, and next time I knew I had to do it a little bit cleaner, and I think M. Thomas just gave this one up because he knew his tyres were starting to go. He puts his hazards on. He's letting me know that I can just go down that inside, so I just stay in the slipstream, pull over, get on the inside, and I know he's not going to fight back because I know he's given that position up with the hazards on. So it's nice to see when people do that. You know, you don't have to be overly aggressive on the throttle and trying to floor it out of the corner. So I just take a nice normal line, and I'm up to P2 again. So that was pretty much it. Managed to hold on to P2, and a great result for myself, picking up some really solid points. So in the lobby it said 2,786 points. However, Benson quit the race before the end, which was a bit annoying because he should have really just stayed in, and the points dropped down to 2,650. So I lost 139 points because of that, but still up into P10 in the top 10 in the European Manufacturers Championship. So great start in this series so far, and I couldn't really ask for more. P1 in Mercedes. There is some other people getting good points in the Mercedes. I think Jimbo's again picked up 2,300 points. So it really does look like this championship is going to be between Force, myself and Jim Bowes. It's going to really come down to the top 24 races if we get into them and seeing how they work out. So anyway, Mercedes seem to be doing really well in the championship, also in Asia and also America. I think we're about P4 or 5 overall now, and looking like a comfortable, it looks like we're comfortably in terms of the top 24, the final world race. I don't think, looking at the championship, there's a few cars that are just impossible to get through now. So it's starting to take shape which manufacturers are getting through, and it looks like Mercedes are going to get through. So it's looking good for myself, and hopefully I can keep these solid race results up. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that video. Make sure you subscribe to this channel if you haven't already subscribed, and click that notification button so you don't miss any future videos. Thanks again for watching, everyone, and make sure you give this video a thumbs up if you've enjoyed it. Thank you again, everyone.